The year is 1346, and you are a young apprentice working in a busy London hospital. Surrounded by the stench of rotting waste and chamber pots, your days are filled with treating plague victims. The air is thick with death as patients succumb to the disease and swell up before your eyes. As a witness to this horrifying outbreak, you wonder if you will be next. Throughout history, deadly plagues have swept across the globe, decimating entire populations. And it wasn't until we learned to wash our hands that we were able to stop them. So here's how soap helped end the plague. The Black Death, also known as the plague, arrived in Europe in the mid-1300s, where it remained for the next 200 years. It was spread by fleas living on rats, which thrived in the filthy conditions of medieval cities. As the plague progressed, entire families would die, leaving their homes and streets untouched. The only evidence of their presence, piles of rotting corpses. Because the disease was so widespread and so deadly, people began to take drastic measures in an attempt to stop it. Some believed the best way to avoid infection was to smell nice. So they doused themselves in perfume or covered themselves in flowers. Others thought that illness was caused by an imbalance of the four humors, or fluids in the body, and ate foods and concocted drinks meant to rebalance them. Naturally, these did not work. As doctors struggled to find a cure, they noticed something strange. Not everyone who came down with the plague died. And those who survived didn't just survive, they seemed to bounce back quickly, seemingly unscathed. But why? What were these survivors doing differently? In the midst of this horrific outbreak, two doctors in particular took notice of something peculiar. Italian physician Gabriel Fallopius and French surgeon Guy de Chauliac observed that those who recovered from the plague seemed to have one thing in common. They had all used soap to wash themselves. At the time, soap was a relatively new invention. For centuries, people had used perfumed oils and scented waters to clean themselves. But soap made from animal fat and lye or wood ash was a more effective way to remove dirt and smells. Although it was still relatively expensive, more and more people were using it. And what they didn't realize at the time was that soap could help prevent the spread of deadly diseases. With no cure for the plague, some of the physicians began recommending soap as a treatment. However, even if they had known the truth, there was nothing they could do about it, because the supply of soap was limited. There simply wasn't enough to go around. But as the plague raged on, the supply of soap increased and eventually became more affordable. And with more soap came more discoveries. It was unlong before doctors realized that washing your hands with soap could prevent the spread of disease. But it took another 400 years for scientists to figure out why. In the 1800s, Ignaz Semmelweis noticed that doctors were transferring bacteria from cadavers to patients during autopsies and then making them sick. He insisted that doctors wash their hands with soap and water before treating patients, which drastically reduced the number of deaths. But he was met with resistance because autopsies were considered an important part of medical education. In those days, there were no rubber gloves or disposable masks, so doctors scrubbed up using soap and water had to suffice. In 1867, French chemist Paul Vix announced to the world that he had discovered the structure of soap molecules. He realized that one end of the molecule was hydrophilic, meaning it loved water, while the other end was hydrophobic, meaning it repelled water. This duality allowed soap molecules to surround and trap dirt, oil, and bacteria, allowing them to be washed away. Soon after, in 1879, German physician Robert Koch proved that bacteria caused disease, and the use of soap to kill bacteria became even more widespread. But it wasn't until World War II that the importance of washing your hands with soap and water was really emphasized. Public service announcements were created to teach people how to properly wash their hands to prevent the spread of disease. By the end of the war, hand washing had gone from a luxury to a necessity. Today, we know that soap can kill 99.9% of germs. And although many different kinds of soap exist, they all follow the same basic principles to keep us clean. The next time you reach for a bar of soap, take a moment to appreciate its power. Without this simple invention, we may not have survived the plague, nor countless other diseases that soap has helped prevent. Now you know how soap helped end the plague. But did you know that the plague still exists today? Click here to watch this video on how the plague still affects us today, or click here to watch this video.